Hello everyone. So today I have something so monumentally momentous that I need to talk about. And I phrase it like that because it's been very critical in my own life. It's kind of changed the entirety of my perspective on what productivity means and how creativity even works in the first place, how you become creative, how you feel energized, and like you develop the tendency to be a thoughtful, creative person, and not just someone who's pretty much jaded and like cynical and stuff. And this mentality is being minimal as you can possibly be throughout the day. And by that, I mean choosing to do less than more. And by choosing to do less, I don't mean that you're idle most of the time. I'm not saying you don't do the stuff that you need to do. I'm not saying any of that at all. If anything, if you are doing this, you're doing more than you are ordinarily capable of, because this is an extraordinary mentality. This is a mentality that puts you at the top. And it's that less is more. And I know you've heard of this phrase so many times before. We've all heard of it. It's not like something new or anything, but you've always been a person, and I know you, I don't know you, but like we've all been very much downplaying the importance of this one phrase, which is less is more. You gotta get it into your freaking mind. I mean, I'm telling myself that because I've been so obsessed with putting as many things on my to-do list, as many tasks in my schedules, that at some point it just becomes like a performative thing that I just needed to tick off something, and I need to just perform this elaborate, task of going through these steps that are not even conscious. Like I'm not feeling alive when I'm doing it because it's not something that I am doing. It's just a system that has been put in place by this unconscious self, which will run the entirety of your life if you allow it. I mean, you're gonna live the entirety of your life in a default mode of just going through this passive way of performing, and that's going to make your life feel not creative at all. Like you're just gonna drain your mind, and you're gonna bore yourself to death by doing that. And we're all doing it. I mean, it's very difficult to escape that sort of mentality because we have a lot of responsibilities and we need to get things done as fast as we can, because there's a big upside to that. When you get things done in time, then you're going to be able to attend to other things that are important to you, and like you're just going to have much more opportunities. But we've gotten so wrapped up in that idea that we no longer even are doing more by doing more. You know what I mean? It's like we're actually doing less by switching from task to task, by doing a lot, by cramming a lot. We have lost the capacity to think. We've become this robotic self that just goes through the whole process without so much effort, without so much like really intentionality that provokes your own sense of curiosity. So as I was saying, less is always more because it gives you time to digest the information, to make sure that you're not just passively going through the process. You're not being dead in your mind, you're not allowing the body to do the work without your mind being aware of the movement that has been carried out by the body. I mean, like to a point that is just so lifeless that you don't feel like you're even there anymore. You know what I mean? It's like you become a person who carries out an obligation that has been put on your shoulders, and you're gonna switch your mindset into thinking that you're forced to do those things and you have to do those things, instead of thinking that you're privileged enough to be able to even do them in the first place. So if you want to gain that sense of agency, that sense of being there and actually involving your mind actively in the process, you need to do less, okay? Do less. Slow down. Don't do anything fast. Have a slow morning routine, and then maybe take a walk. Don't get into this rush mentality of like getting on with it as soon as possible. No, it's a privilege, and you have to see it as a privilege. And it's like you have to feel invigorated by the task and go through the whole process as if the world has handed you a gift. Okay, it's not anything to take for granted, and we take it for granted because we've been dealing with it as if it's an obligation. It's not. Your daily precision is such a beautiful gift if you think about it deeply, and that's what we lack. We lack depth because we're too busy doing stuff that we're always on the surface of things. We're always like shallowly going from one task to another without so much personalization of the whole process. I mean, if you don't feel connected, if you don't feel like you're making a difference, then you're just being a cog in the system, right? Then you're not even important, right? Because how come it's important for you to like do all those things when you are just repeating the process that has been given to you by some other individuals, and you're just conducting something that has been laid out perfectly for you, and you're just performing all the time, performing, never doing it, never actually feeling fulfilled because you're not particularly giving yourself time to reflect on it in order to appreciate it. You're not digesting what you're consuming. You're just like receiving without so much giving. When you start getting into the zone of creative thinking, then everything becomes like a painting. Everything will bear a personal touch, your personal touch. And that makes you feel like you are contributing to something rather than being part of this whole large system that doesn't even value you as a person. So that's one thing we need to do. We need to slow down. We need to pay more attention. We need to be much more intentional as to what we're doing in our day. So the best way to ensure that that's how you're approaching your days is to begin your day by analyzing your own thoughts around it, right? By delving deeper into how you are going to approach the day. And that's only going to be possible through journaling and through practicing this mindful habit of taking every moment as it comes and not trying to rush to the end, not try to rush to get things done. No, put as minimum amount on your to-do list as you possibly can, because that's the only way to ensure that you're appreciating everything that you're doing. And that appreciation is not just, this woo-woo feeling of, oh, wow, 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 wow. No, it's not a wow, bow sort of feeling, It's not. It's more than that. It's just understanding deeper, and that leads to appreciation. It's not appreciation. Appreciation is just a symptom of what's happening that's much more profound, that's much more fundamental. And it's deepening your understanding of what you're doing and being a part of it rather than sitting on the outside and looking at it like it's some sort of mysterious thing that you need to just go through without making any change. And that's our problem. That's our problem, okay? All right. So when you cut down all the tasks, then it becomes possible for you to plunge yourself into that flow state, for you to feel like you are riding the wave instead of being in constant back and forth. You're following a steady stream instead of being in this turbulent way of going from one rock to another and not catching any breath. Right? So it becomes so much easier for you to reach the flow state because now you have only one single narrow stream of focus, okay? And that's when the idea flows because you're narrowing down your attention and your day is consisted of one single task. That's it. For all I care, it might be just you reading one poem or trying to reflect on a single work of art, trying to study that work of art very deeply and appreciate it and spend the entirety of the day just poring over whatever you're seeing and go into the detail of that work of art or work of, poetry or whatever, literature, whatever you're reading, and just making it the sole source of inspiration. And that's why I say less is more, because that becomes very expansive, very huge when you go deeper, when you have one specific thing to do and you don't feel pressured by anything else. That's when you feel the freedom of going to create your own version of that work that you're studying, right? So, for example, when you're reading a poem and the entirety of the day is for you to analyze that poem or try to get to know the deeper meaning behind that poem. Maybe it's a piece from some sort of classic writer that you need to even look up the word that you might not understand the meaning of, right? So there's so many ways in which you can go deeper into that, and there's no end to how many things you can glean out of it, and how much more focused and detailed you can become in that specific study that you're doing. And that's when you truly enter the flow state. And the flow state isn't about like doing a 1 hour thing. No, it takes much more time than that. It takes much more deliberation than that. You have to spend the entirety of the day on it in order to reach to that peak of that flow. You know, when you're like in the peak flow and you feel fulfilled, you feel like, oh, I've done the job and I don't need to worry about today, because today was a great step in the right direction in transforming and reforming my thinking and my entire perspective, right? Your brain just changes its chemistry because you've gone so far into that direction that your brain just sees everything differently after you come out of it. And so that is very important for us to have in order to enter the flow state. And so that is why I say do less, okay? 4 hours dedicating to one specific task, a solitary focal point. That's what you need. If I were to give a personal example, I would say there's been days that I would not do anything and just have a piece of paper and a pen and try to document every single moment that I observe and try to like analyze my days and try to plan out the next day or the entirety of the year. When I am in that state of seeing and observing, it's so much more productive than doing a lot of things in one day. If you were to journal the entirety of the day and do nothing but that would be so much more productive than you cramming as much activity into that narrow stream of time and just being able to touch the surface. You'd not even be able to scratch the surface of it. You know, that's how shallow you're treating everything. So it's so much better to spend the entirety of the day on one single task than have a lot of things on your plate and not be able to like eat them properly, not be able to quite properly digest them. And that's equivalent to not getting anything done. So what are you doing? You're just fooling yourself into thinking that you're doing a lot, when in fact, you're not even scratching the surface of any of it. And you're just a fraud, you know? So this is what's been on my mind. I'm just rambling on about whatever I think has been helping me and has been giving me a lot more freedom mentally. So here we go. Maybe you can use it. Maybe you can think about it in your own days as well, because I think it's going to help you. I mean, at the end of the day, what works for me doesn't really work for everyone. So just give it a whirl, and if it works, then it works. Thank you for watching. I hope that I can see you in the next video.